Well, I mean, it's very securing to know that any experience that is shared by two or more people, in a result of all the people involved agreeing to co-create that experience, even conflict can only occur if both parties agree to be in conflict, you know? We can only experience that which is resonant with the vibrations that we're currently choosing to be. So if we believe we need to be protected, you are attracting into your reality the very thing you believe you need to be protected from, right? So if if war is not of your vibration, there is no way you can experience war. You can only experience that which you have on some level already agreed to experience. So it comes into the idea that, you know, everything is, you know, holographic in holographic in nature. Like each individual is a self-aware, self-reflective, self-free will entity. It's a holographic representation of infinite creation. Every individual is always as powerful as they need to be to create whatever reality they desire without having to hurt anyone else, them, or self in order to get it. But we still all share this physical reality, even though it's, even though we're all individual expressions of an individual reality, you know? And that's where the conscious collective agreement comes into play. And we can already establish that there are certain things, certain beliefs that we have collectively that, you know, 9.9999999% of us believe in, or the conscious collective believes in, which, you know, is gravity, you know, for one big thing. So even if we truly tell ourselves, when we truly believe that if we jump off a cliff, you know, we're going to float, the chances are it's not going to happen because of the collective conscious agreement. So we're still very much tied into that as the same time as being an individual, you know?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people say, well, if I believe that I don't have to eat at all, then we're good. And it's like, you know, that's not, like, yes, gravity is a belief, but it's not probable and it's not relevant for your themes and for this day and age to fly. Even though technically, yes, that is not a law, that we are grounded here. And in spirit, we're all flying anyways. A lot of people don't actually conceive completely that we have the collective consciousness level of reality, which is higher in vibration than our individual themes. It's like our collective themes that we have: time, space, gravity. That when you cut, you bleed. Our biology, our physiology, our DNA, everything like that.
Right.
And yeah, so there's, you know, and it's kind of, not to get too deep too quickly here, but like our DNA itself is sort of like the template. We're all experiencing this together. We're all one. We all have the same sort of DNA code, genetic markers to help turn on, to share with one another. So I have an idea, another person will have an idea somewhere out there, and perhaps me getting that idea also came from someone else's mind or something else's mind. And then once one person gets it, all human beings will get it. And I mentioned this on another show, but there was a study done where some cranes in Asia started exhibiting a behavior, and some researchers noted that some cranes in South America were exhibiting the same behavior. The first time ever cranes ever exhibited this behavior, same day.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. A perfect example of how we are just all one. We're just floating around. We're wavy vibrational waves, just doing our thing here, you know?
I've always been trained in that as well. And I guess it's just, I think that shows we do have some level of responsibility to really focus on solutions and focus on the wanted, because in terms of things like what you're saying, if that's true for cranes, then that could be true for, there is something we can do from this side of the globe that would address starvation in Africa or no clean water in Africa. There are things that we can do. So that is a lot of responsibility. And at the same time, if we're thinking and imagining of violence and low vibrational things, that can also manifest all over in consciousness. So That's an
Well,
interesting thought about the law of one. Is this, would you say this is the law of one that we're referring to
oh,
when we
not
say
really.
one?
That's kind of that phrase is another sort of philosophy, and I kind of dabbled a little bit into it, but the second
The
didn't really.
law of one. Oh my gosh, there was a great the book, The Law of One, and they go over that highly, which I found a lot of similarities between that and the Tao. So I don't know, that was just one of the most interesting things this past year.
Yeah,
But
they just
but
have
before we get
something.
too far away, I wanted to touch a little bit on one thing that you mentioned just a second ago, Cheryl, for our for our listeners. You said we don't want to get too deep, but I just want to clarify one thing. When we talk about wholeness, we talk about oneness, coming to the idea of one of the things that we've mentioned in other shows, where all things are the same one thing, just vibrating at different rates. So I'll just quickly just say, just as water and steam and ice are all the same thing, vibrating at different frequencies. Likewise, matter and energy are the same substance, vibrating at different frequencies, right? So we have the highest frequencies, which would be steam or consciousness, the medium frequencies, which would be water, liquid, or spirit, and then the lower frequencies would be ice or matter, right? So all things are spirit vibrating at different frequencies. Matter is solidified energy, matter is spirit energy vibrating at a slower frequency. Your body is solidified spirit, crystallized spirit. Your spirit is not in your body, your body is in your spirit. So as we raise our vibrations, we become more spirit-like, moving closer towards fluid-like spirit, thereby making our reality and creation more malleable, as Bashar would say, and easily changeable, right? So keeping in mind that all things are just one thing, adding to the idea of the connectivity and connectedness between everything and everyone,
So there was kind of a little bit of an argument in quantum physics about this. I'm probably getting this wrong, but I think it's the Copenhagen interpretation versus the multiple worlds hypothesis. And so the Copenhagen interpretation pretty much says, like, if you're not around and the tree falls, it doesn't even make a sound, period. It just doesn't. And the multiple worlds hypothesis is saying that just because you're not interacting with something doesn't mean it's not doing something. And okay, I guess the way I want to kind of tie this together and explain it, what I'm trying to say anyways, is that we are all in our own realities. I will never be in your reality and you will never be in my reality. We do interact with each other's energy, and I feel and I interpret your energy as what I'm perceiving that you are saying, which isn't even going to be similar to what you're saying. I mean, it isn't going to be the same as what you're saying. It can be similar when our vibrations match and we are vibrating on similar frequencies. But my vibration is my vibration, and your vibration is your vibration, and you are created entirely out of my consciousness. What I'm perceiving you to be is actually created out of my consciousness. Yes, I perceive what you're doing, I interpret what you're doing, but then I create you. And there's a version of you that exists in my reality. I'll never actually see the real you. You see what I'm getting at here? And this is what, and bringing it back to oneness, is that we're all actually existing in our very own unique individual realities. Like, a bunch of people can be in a room and they're not in the same room. They're all creating their own rooms. Nobody's in the same room at all whatsoever. We are interfacing with each other's energy and perceiving and translating what we are perceiving, whether we vibrate similarly or not. We might be perceiving something and you don't intend that at all, but we're going to still go ahead and create that in our reality as what you're doing or what you're thinking or who you are. And you're doing something completely different. Does this make sense?
It does. It absolutely does make sense. And I think another thing for our viewers, before, if they might get, confused with what you're saying, just because we see things in our reality doesn't necessarily mean that they are actually in our reality. So when it comes to the idea of a tree falling and it not making any noise, that's kind of what I choose to believe, like a case-by-case basis. Like, I'm really on the fence with this.
But the tree is, well, first of all, the tree is also conscious. So go ahead.
Right. So the idea whether of things, like when you travel down the road and you don't see anything behind you, does it just disappear? Does it go away? Or is it because someone else sees it, it's still there, right? So then it comes into the idea of the tree falling in the forest that no one is around. Does it still make a noise? Does it even still fall? Is it even still there?
And the other trees, all the other trees are conscious too, and they're like, hey, what happened to Fred?
Exactly. So this is exactly what I'm getting at by the collective conscious idea. So I understand the argument that is there between Copenhagen, that and what I truly believe is that that stuff still does happen, in a sense, even though we aren't necessarily there to perceive it. The other aspects of ourselves, okay, are there to perceive it, even though those aspects might seem, you know, even more external than us, like a tree different than us. On the grand scheme of things, kind of like you were just explaining, mechanically speaking, it's separate, but it's also us. So, so I guess, you know, it is kind of confusing because that's a paradox right there. Like, wow, you know? So I can understand.
Perceive, we can perceive the energies of it. If we vibe similarly to it, we'll perceive it and then create what it is. And it might be kind of close to what the tree is thinking, but it's not going to be the same. And most of the time, it's not even going to be close. It's sad. We're alone. We're ultimately completely freaking alone.
No. We're completely together. We are one.
Yeah, but so another thing that I want to bring up is that the split in consciousness, what this means and where we're going. And so we're all creating our own individual unique realities. It's never going to be the same as anybody else. But as a collective, so we're beating off of each other. I'm feeling your vibration and you're feeling my vibration. And we'll all change in groups, we'll evolve. So I'll keep perceiving you because you're evolving. I'm going to keep perceiving you. I'm going to keep perceiving you. But pretty soon I won't be able to perceive those vibrating so drastically different. They're going to break off into their own groups where they'll still be able to perceive each other. Just like we can't see Bigfoot or the fairies because we're not vibrating similarly enough. Those that are advancing will start to see the fairies, will perceive the fairies and talk to the trees more closely. And we're not even going to see those that are vibrating more
So
densely.
actually,
it's already happening.
Interesting question really quick. And yes, Ansley, that's right. What I was going to ask was, when do you think that's going to start to truly, you know, occur? And are we going to be able to perceive that? Are we able to pick up on the ideas that, hey, there were certain things that I was interacting with that I no longer am a part of anymore or no longer perceive anymore? Or are they just going to be completely gone? It's like it never happened. So for example, could it be like, it's like when you mentioned fairies raising their vibration and you know continuing their spiritual evolution and becoming less apparent to us, could it perhaps be like that only like appeared to be like just a second ago, like a flash, you know, like spirits or fairies were a part of our lives like moments ago, and then just now they're not.
We'll actually remember times where we had conversations with them. It'll all come back to us. That will happen too. So all those things that you just said happen. That's super cool that you just said that actually. And and sometimes we'll perceive that other person died, but in their reality they're still living. So it'll be like in a manifestation type way as well. There might be a cataclysm and it'll be like, oh my God, you know, we just lost all these people. They're actually still alive in another realm.
So do you think that's a way that like our third dimensional mind would be able to interpret or be able to I guess what would be the word to I guess cope or grasp or
so that it runs smoothly, so that it actually kind of just phases in. Yeah, that'll happen. There's been a lot of people that have died that are still alive. They just switched into a completely different dimension, a completely different reality, where it was a near miss, where they're like, whoa, I almost just died. And just everything changes in their life and they don't even know, but other people are attending their funeral.
Wow. That's catchy.
I mean, I know. That's what I've always kind of heard too, is that when people die and we're all sad and we're going to the funeral, they're just going right on. They're doing the dishes. They're doing the laundry. They're just doing their life. But like, when are they not, and when are they? What are the delineating factors, or what are the options?
You just said the magic word "when," and there's no such thing as time. We are all dead right now.
That's right. Oh my God. It's so funny. We got to get Bashar on this. He's gonna school us.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's wild.
Wait,
Yeah.
you
It's
said we're
funny
dead?
So we're all actually, yeah, we're dead right now.
What
Viewing.
kind of, yeah. I mean, we're dreaming that we're, and having this physical reality, but we're really in spirit now. So I guess the interpretation, is once we die, we we go back to spirit, right? But the most of us,
Deja vu is when you accidentally see yourself viewing your life from when you already died.
crazy.
Yeah. and you kind of when you die, you'll come back and you'll be like, oh, we're gonna do this now, and I'm gonna just make a little change right there, and you expand outward. You don't go in linear time one day after another. You kind of blossom. So we're like dying and making tweaks and adjustments and coming back. We're alive. We're experiencing our reality completely randomly, but that's not even it. It all happened at once.
Yeah, the eternal now moment.
There's never been a time where it wasn't now. There are all so many nows. So many nows.
Wow.
And the reality is that I guess I can kind of explain this too, that we're rolling through like millions of parallel realities every second, and they're
Yeah.
all actually still frames. So when you go to walk across the room, there's no movement. It's just all these parallel realities stacked side by side, like a film reel is all still frames, and you roll the film, it starts going around around the thing, and you're just looking through it, so you see the legs walking. That's why
Right.
pretty much in spirit you just disappear and reappear, like we see UFOs disappear and reappear. They don't need movement
Yes.
to get from point A to point B. We never did need movement. That's all kind of a trick
Right.
that we use.
And that's where interdimensional travel comes into play. So I guess for reviewers, or for our listeners, to really understand the idea that, there is only one moment in all creation. And like I said before, that's what we call the eternal now. Now, some people like to say, time is an illusion or time doesn't exist. Well, my idea, time, yes, it might be an illusion, but it still exists because we experience it. And just like you said, Cheryl, about the analogy about, a film projector, like the individual frames, of the film are shown in a rapid, steady sequence, like one frame at a time. And the rapid, steady sequence of still frames creates the illusion of flowing time. But in truth, like you said, all the actual frames that are used to exist simultaneously, there's the illusion of time, but only when film projector displays those frames one frame at a time in a rapid, steady sequence, yet all those frames exist, simultaneously.
The experience is real, but time really isn't real. You can just take all the film reel out and just throw it on the floor and see all these still frames everywhere. That's actually what it is.
Yes, and that would be like our, our higher mind acting as the projection as to can, throw them on the floor, spread them out, and view them all at the same moment.
That's just another possibility, because really they're all simultaneously existing. So yeah, wrap your mind around it. We got to continue to try to wrap around our mind around the fact that time isn't real, because I always get this, like with my clients, are like, no, but when and what was happening before? And I'm just like, listen to your words. You keep saying when, before,
Right.
things that relate to time. Your question is already flawed. If you want to really understand this, you can just hear it in the question. If you're trying to if you're trying to figure it out, you don't get it yet, that it all happened at once. There is no such thing as before. Like, why is this happening to me karmically? Did I do something in my past life to get this here now? No, you just want to learn this now, and you're cross connecting to the other vectors of your oversoul. You're cross connecting to it because it's benefiting you too, because you both are experiencing the same thing right now. So you're both in the swing of it right now because you wanted to know more about that. And what better way to learn than to really put yourself in it? There's no such thing as a punishment thing. You're not reaping something you sowed then, now. There's no back and forth like that. And
Right.
so we have to constantly, like, you have to try to fathom this thousands of times, I think, again and again. Keep trying to wrap your mind around that at time.
Right. And I guess that's where, the idea of meditation and, mindfulness come into play. When we know the only thing that is truly now is, the only thing that's truly real, is now. Your past lives are, they're occurring right now. Your future lives are occurring right now. All periods are coexisting right now. The concept of reincarnation is not quite as accurate as, simultaneous multiple incarnations,
Yeah.
So it's like continuity is the illusion. Since one is not obligated to go from one frame to another, it's almost the same, the normal flow of time. So it's possible to hop to a totally different frame in the infinite universe, but that would be what they call, time travel.
Yeah, time travel and teleportation, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the laws, Bashar's laws, everything is here and now. Nothing that's ever happened has ever happened other than now. And the law that every part contains the whole and the whole contains every part, as above, so below. These are actually the same law. That's why 4 laws turn into 5, because humans weren't ready to see that those 2 things are the same thing. And it's just oneness. It's just the same thing as we're all one. Everything exists right here, right now. It's the big, so it's like we're all just one entity, right? Experiencing all the different things. So how can I explain this? Like, it seems like you, me, and Ansley are all here right now, but we're actually all the same person. You see what I mean? Time doesn't exist.
Well, mechanically speaking, yes. And I think also, again, for our listeners to understand, when we talk about that idea, we need to keep in mind the levels of consciousness. Now, Cheryl, I know that you're like an expert in like the levels of consciousness, because you just mentioned the template level reality just before. When we go, and you also mentioned oversouls just before. So when we go all the way up the chain, none more or less, or just for argument's sake, we come back to one, the source, the master mind behind all creation, the only one consciousness that there is. And like we talked about in another show, the definition of consciousness is that which is, or is that which experiences itself, right? So when we come to the idea of God or the universe or Yahweh, whatever label you choose to give it, it's one singular consciousness. It's heterogeneous, which doesn't know of anything else.
It's everything that's ever existed. It's all.
When you say that you, Ansley, and I are all the same, like there's a lot of truth to that, but that is like some super deep, like on the mechanic level of creation itself. Which is
meaning we're all drops of water in the ocean, like it's all the ocean, because don't we have some kind of an individuality, or are you all just holograms, or
it's
like
both
of me?
Well, yeah, you're right, Ansley. Try to think of it like maybe this will help. So think of like a spider web in the morning covered in dew, right? The little drops of water. Each dewdrop has a perfect reflection, right, of every other dewdrop in it, and each dewdrop on the spiderweb is one as a whole, so they're each different expressions, okay, or they're each different reflections of all, and that's where we come into play. We are different reflections or different expressions of one thing. And Bashar chooses to say a lot of times different perspectives, which is something that I resonate with, being, like a life coach, helping people look at things from different perspectives. But yeah.
So the first law, the reason the first law is because of this. You wondering that, it can be kind of scary to think like, oh, well, I guess I just don't exist. But you do exist. You'll always exist as you. So if you exist, you can't not exist. You will always exist as you. But you can have the perspective temporarily of anybody else, any other thing, even your oversoul, even the one. That means everything all is one. And that will happen, and it does happen. You just can't retain that being here. When you do go there, you'll be like, oh my God, this is actually the true me, but yeah, it's like super trippy. But so you will always exist no matter what, as Ansley. So you don't reincarnate in that way. You won't forget who you are, and all of a sudden you wake up, you're somebody else, and then you live that whole life. No, you
Mm.
cross connections to the other vectors of your oversoul, or just other lives that are experiencing things similarly, that are vibrating similar to you for whatever's relevant for that. Now you can cross connect so much that you can't even see the difference between you and them. Where do I end and where do others begin? And like I said, even the higher mind, the oversoul's oversoul, all the way up to the one. But you can't undo your existence, and you can't lose yourself in the big sea of oneness.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm not nowhere near an expert, by the way. I've just fathomed this stuff a lot, and the
Well,
more
yeah,
I fathom, the more I know I know nothing.
yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Maybe I just hold you on a pedestal.
Aw. But yeah, and so tying this in with the border wall and other kind of ideas that have been going around that separate us from one another, like, you know, racism or transphobia, or, you know, just all that. I mean, what we just said, I mean, when you go from there to thinking about, like, do we need this wall, and trying to wrap yourself back around the whole, like, I look at all politics right now as just water under the bridge. It keeps going, and time is so eternal, you know, and I'm sure that China had a really great idea when they built the wall, but now we kind of look at them like they're asses. We're like, no, I'm going to make this wall so big, you're not coming over here. Stay on your side, you filthy gangsters.
Yeah, keep your sorrows to yourself. I feel like, you know, I'm so indifferent, you know, to those ideas of when it comes to politics. But quickly, you know, I also have this idea where I feel like a lot of those things that are being pushed, you know, on the media, a lot of arguments, whether it comes to um, you know, the gender dispute or racism or the wall thing, or whether it comes to politics, a lot of that stuff isn't as real as we think. And what I mean by that is a lot of that is just like created false ideas to sort of condition, right, humanity to separate and divide. I believe, now I truly wholeheartedly believe, now this is an interesting, you know, idea here. In December, you know, in Christmas time, there was that song, you know, Baby It's Cold Outside, right? And there was all this talk of, you know, the topic was that song is promoting, you know, like forcing like this woman to stay, you know, like against her will, you know. And it was like, how are people thinking like that? Like, people need to grow up and everything. And I don't truly believe that people really thought that too much, right? I believe that that message is what was selling, not necessarily people truly being upset about it. And now we have, you know, the Mary Poppins movie remake coming out, and they were saying that there are people who think that there was a scene where Mary Poppins was with the chimney sweep and he was portraying blackface, right? So automatically that's racist. And now on Facebook and social media, the message there, or the posts there, are about that being, you know, racist. And I don't know if anybody really thinks that that is racist. I believe that that is just like propaganda, or it's just like created, that like nobody truly believes it's racist, but the media is putting out the idea that people think it's racist, you know, just to cause like a little bit of a lower vibration, you know, in the masses, to keep us separated, or to keep us thinking of that and not really acting, you know, to our full potential. When
we can get a little bit political, and we can kind of dabble a little bit right now. And I'll just say my own specific opinion about this, which of course is just my opinion. And I know that it's not racist in your reality because you never even thought about that. You might not have even heard of blackface. It doesn't mean anything to you. So in your world right now, it's not really racist. But one thing that I tried to like, I try to explain this to, we have a big divide in our culture, the white people and the black people. And when you're born in a white family, you're raised by white people, you don't really hear some of the same things, and you don't experience it in the same way that a black family will. that were raised in their great grandmother, who might still be alive, experienced the segregation and the abuse and what happened, and they still have that animosity. And yes, back then Black people were in the service industry a lot, and they were in the entertainment industry a lot. And when segregation was still happening and there was still a lot of racism, they were viewed in a certain way, as less than, as our servants, kind of like that. I was even reading about the fact that America still has the tipping system where servers don't get paid as much as other people, because when slaves were freed, they still wanted to actually get free service. So they're like, okay, well, the public's going to pay them. I can't afford it. I'm running my business on slaves. So we're going to do it this way now. So we kind of take all this for granted. We don't really realize a lot of our medical advancements were done. These children were forced. They were taken in and experimented on. And the fact that we don't talk about that is it's kind of messed up, because we don't recognize stuff that happened. Now it's just like it never happened. And that's where it comes in. So we don't really realize what it's like to be born in a Black family and come up knowing this, and then seeing our aloofness and our ignorance. And there's still a lot of racism that when we don't notice it, we don't notice that we have a fear, or that we look at them different, we treat them different, and we're not ourselves around them, just because of the color of their skin. You know what I mean? And they sense it. It's very subtle, but they can sense it. They sense it on a lot of people, and a lot of white people don't know that they are kind of racist. So in a few more generations, we can say that, but I still think it's a little bit too fresh still. And we still do have a weird stigma. A lot of white people have this stigma, especially in the South. And I'm living in the South. Ansley's living out West, and Trent's living up in New York. So maybe a little bit different.
Well, even here in Los Angeles, it's you don't have to talk to too many people who are Black to you have to listen to them, and they're like, no, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. It doesn't matter how people don't think they're doing it. It's been programmed into them, and it's going to take a long time to undo. So
this is fresh. Like I said, this is not even a full generation ago where we weren't experiencing real, like I said, segregation in that way, and we're still experiencing racism. So it's going to be even more generations before it's really not going to be an issue. I think one day we won't have racism. I do believe in humankind enough that one day we just see human. Even when it comes to gender, we look at and women, we see, oh, that's a woman. We all of a sudden change the way we're perceiving this human being, and the way we act toward this human being, the way we, because of that. And especially, don't even get me started on transgenders. We're just like, what are you, you freak? Why can't you choose one or the other? Why do they have to choose one or the other? That's a human being.
I think there's a lot of people who don't really
animal. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of people who don't have that belief. Like, I know that you don't. I know that I don't.
Oh, there's a lot. I think they're the most hated minority is transgenders.
I also, believe, this is interesting. This is neat too. Something Bashar has said a lot. We're getting all of this out on the table, which is another thing that we've said in other episodes. We're getting all the negativity. We're getting all the, our differences out, right? Because we're ringing in a new age, and I'm talking about the age of Aquarius, and this is coming up relatively soon. And I truly believe that in order to get past the idea of racism is to actually get past the idea of being equal. Okay? Now, what I mean by that is, I do not believe that we are all equal. I believe we're all completely different. However, I believe we're all uncomparable. We can't compare another person with another person, whether it's a white person or a Black person, or a white person or a white person. I believe that we're all, individuals.
Yeah. When we see the human and know that we can't generalize that according to what they look like. One day I'm going to be an 80-year-old grandma. You won't even be able to tell what I looked like when I was younger, and I'm going to get treated like an 80-year-old rather than how I'm treated now. And I try to get to that, I try to
go to your room.
little whippersnappers.
Yeah.
But I want to see the child in the grandma. I want to see the young girl in the grandma, and I want to see the grandma in the child, and I just want to see the individual. Like, you don't know somebody by looking at them, even if they don't know themselves. You know what I mean? There's so much. Human beings are so dynamic, really. So really, just not the oneness and the love that when you start to think like this, your heart just wells up, and it's just exploding with love. And then when you go back and you think about something like border walls, it's a no-brainer to me. But again, everybody's different, so it's just my opinion.
What do you think, Ansley? What do you think on the idea of racism?
Well, I think that everything is caused, any kind of dissonance is caused by fear. And when people don't understand someone or something because they're not like them, they have fear about it. So anyone that's a minority, more people are going to say, I have fear about that person because they're different from me. And skin color is one of the most obvious ones. And it's, and so it's just about, like, I constantly work with the idea that we're all one. I've never had a problem with racism. But my problem is sometimes I want to say, oh, well, that person's, I'll take people that I think might be racist, and I'll judge them. And I realize that's also part of the problem too. Because
we have to understand why they're that way. It's something bigger, even
and
having passion for them.
Right. And I mean, we're the three of us, I would say we're sensitive. We have sensitivity. But what about people that don't have sensitivity as much? Maybe we're one way on the spectrum where we are sensitive and we are open-minded, and we're at where we're at in consciousness. But for me, I've really been working with this idea of one a lot lately in my life, where there's not one race, not many races, there's one race. Even there's not many minds, there's one mind. And so, like, even today, I went to go make an appointment to do my taxes. And the lady, I could tell I had fear. I could be wrong, but I had fear she didn't like me. And I didn't really love the way I was being treated. But I was tempted in my mind to, who knows what my facial expressions were doing when I felt judged or unwelcome in the tax place to make the appointment, and who knows what was going on. But I had to say, okay, no, I'm not going to close down. I'm not going to judge her for seemingly judging me, because there's only one mind, there's only one race, there's only one right here, right now. We're all one. She's me, I'm her. And
we don't know her circumstances and
right.
I feel that. Exactly. Like, when somebody sees somebody from a different race kind of being like the stereotype that people talk, like they have a couple of those behaviors, and then they automatically go to the whole, oh, it's because they're black or whatever, or you know what I mean, something like that. They just jump into the generalization. I think it almost takes practice not doing that and opening your heart chakra and like seeing, like, you don't know the circumstances of this, you didn't live that person's life, you don't even know them. And
it can always change. I think that's the beauty of this conversation of there is no time, and also just being open to what the universe wants to do in that exact moment, and what is being worked out through consciousness in this exact moment. And but it's like not really, I think sometimes remembering history is not helpful. like I could go back in there right now and have a completely different experience with this person.
Mhm.
If I choose not to hold a grudge, if I choose to wipe the slate clean. And it just kind of simplifies everything. I mean, also in terms of this idea of other and just minorities, it's women have been misunderstood for so long because they even though there were 50% relatively more or less is female on the planet, women have been misunderstood, and so they've been a minority just because they're not understood. And so now it's just about learning to understand where people are coming from and really defer to love. And I think sometimes in this process of equality, people have to the power of storytelling has to be used, where people have to hear someone's story and realize, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know they went through all that. Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
As opposed to just fighting for the status quo to remain.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, though, like I myself, I mean, I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to portray myself to be some type of, you know, Buddha or something, but there are people in my life, you know, one person in particular, there's a few that are like this, who we can classify them, you know, as, you know, being like narcissistic psychopaths. And I know that it's a lot of fear-based and a lot of self-esteem type of issues where this character would be very, what do you call it, competitive, you know, because of their lack of self-worth, right? So when I'm in contact with that particular energy, that particular vibration, it's not so much like, you know, F you, it's more like, you know, just get away from me with your fucked up energy. You know? So I mean, I'm not, so it's not like I'm trying to say like
It will
I don't
feel,
know.
it's something that's out of vibration with you will literally feel coarse and harsh and kind of feel uncomfortable and hurt just to be around them. I get what you're saying. I had that with a girl at work, and I realized, like, you
And they
know,
could be the same race. Like they could be white, it could be black, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like if
oh,
we're
oh
not
yeah,
vibing
she's yeah, she's white.
spiritual
And
evolution.
what I realized, so kind of the funny thing was that yeah, her energy, it feels very coarse and grainy and just not nice to be around. But one of the things that made me a little extra about her was that I was seeing the old me in her.
Right. Well, that's
And
probably
that
it.
kind of, yeah.
Well, you could probably use that as a positive, you know, by seeing the person you used to be, by seeing the growth that you've made. And that's how I choose to interpret this particular individual that I am in contact with sometimes, where everything seems to be this um this competition, you know, to be, you know, better or cooler or smarter or wiser. And you know, his way is always right, you know, even though I do not believe that. You know, so, and then it comes down to being disrespected, right? And it's sort of like, I understand that he behaves that way because that's what he was taught, and he's, you know, kind of just doing the best he can with what he's got. You know, like there were other people in his life that treated him that way, so he in turn experiences things the way he does, and he treats others that particular way. And what it really stems down to is just like Ansley said, it's a fear. And I could see right through it, just like you said once, Cheryl, that once we are able to come in contact with our our beliefs, we're able to see negative beliefs like X-ray vision. And I can see this guy. I can see that he has no self-esteem, and everything is just like this constant struggle to have the upper hand on whatever conversation, whatever thing, you know, it is at all times. And you know, so I'm not going to be able to explain to him that's what it is, because this particular this particular individual is so focused on physical reality and not, you know, spiritual yet. So coming to the conclusion, you know, in my case, that, you know, that's just his spiritual evolution, that's just where he is. So accepting that's where he is, but I don't really need to be, you know, around that. So when he's a total dick, I can, you know, do what you do, Cheryl, and I can see myself as the person I used to be, because I used to be like that. I used to, you know.
And what he's ultimately doing is, you know, there's some unconscious, he's doing it unconsciously, but he wants to bring you down, right?
Yeah,
Demean you and convince you that you're as worthless as he feels, bringing you
absolutely.
down at his level, because now he's not alone. Now
Absolutely.
he's sharing.
Did you like put your phone down or something?
Oh, can you hear me?
Kinda.
Yes.
Did you like walk away?
No. Maybe my my signal's not as good right now. How is it now? Should I leave and come back?
No, you're good. You're good right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what I was saying is that what he's ultimately doing is bringing you down, demeaning you, so that he can make you feel as worthless as he feels, so that he's not alone, so that he shares that with you, because misery loves company.
Right.
And you know, this is what other people are doing, and kind of like now tying this into boundaries, personal boundaries. Sort
There.
of, I kind of always saw it as like, you know, you don't really need to even think about boundaries or talk about boundaries. If somebody else is able to make you feel as worthless as they feel, that's your issue. You can completely perceive what they are doing, and you don't need to let it enter your beliefs, convincing you to have negative beliefs about yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
about your own resiliency. And if they're able to do that to you, it's resonating something that already exists within you. So you can actually use this person as a tool to help
Good,
you.
good. Right.
Right. Everyone's a mirror and and a thermometer, letting us know what's already there. See, if there was, if I had a glass of water and I put mud in it, and the water looked very clear because all the silt was all at the bottom of the glass, but then I take a spoon and I stir the glass of water, uh, I might think that the spoon is causing the murkiness, but actually it was already there. I just wasn't really aware of it.
Beautiful. Beautiful analogy.
Oh, that's so
I
nice.
love
Meow.
That's good.
Yeah, and you know, but I had this conversation with a close friend of mine. Well, yeah, yeah. I don't really know him that well, but I feel close to him. But yeah, I was like, you know what? Will you just explain boundaries to me? Because for some reason I cannot wrap my mind around this. I didn't understand what he meant by boundaries. And he kind of brought up an example, like a woman that he knew that he felt was really strong, and she was able to communicate with other people while subliminally, unconsciously letting them know what their boundaries are. And I realized, like, oh crap, I do that. I know that if I bat my eyelashes and lean in, smile, and kind of whisper a little bit to a man, he's going to think I like him. So I know to sort of put, like, I unconsciously take a step back with my energy, you know, and am able to, you know, I'm able to be close with them. I'm able to have that relationship I want with them, and let them know that I respect them, and that but also that we're cool. So it's just my way of communicating with them. So I kind of see, like, maybe I don't have the clear understanding of what boundaries are, but, and I don't know, everybody has their own definition of what boundaries are, but I realize I do that. I guess I really still don't fully grasp. He explained to me what the boundaries were, and I understood it when he explained it to me, but I just have a little bit of an issue with that, because we are all one, and I just want to jump in there and be one with everybody, you know, because that's really what we are. I want to talk to the trees. I want to be close to you. But I realize, because I'm the type of person that I get people thinking weird things. Like, I even have seen weird looks from women. Like, is she gay? It's like, no, I just I want to run your bath for you. It's like weird people out sometimes. My lack of boundaries, maybe.
That's funny.
But you know, that's because I just love. I love serving people and doing things for people, and I love them just when you trust and you love somebody so much, it's like you've known them forever, and you can tell them anything, and you can just be stupid. You can just be your complete self, and you don't have any fear. You're like, yeah, I just did that retarded thing, but I know you don't care. You know, I want that. I want that with everybody. Whether I can manifest that or not, I want that with everybody. One day in the utopia, it will be like that.
I was just gonna say that, and I was like, yeah, when I was like in the in the reality you prefer, it's gonna be like that. It's just a matter of.
I think there's always gonna be like a mixture of energy in our lives. There's gonna be like indications of the new, and then the old, and then kind of somewhere in the middle, and just different gradients. And it's good to get triggered. It's good to have those kind of annoying pebble in your shoe moments with people, because it's the only way to really get free of these belief systems. And it has to happen in order to pave the way for the new experiences and the new types of people in our lives. Like, for instance, there's always going to be like some healthy people, and then some, maybe they might feel like toxic situations or toxic people, but it's still there for a reason to.
Right.
Oh yeah, we can find a common ground with any type of person, whether they're from a culture so completely different, whether they're from Mars, or whether they're 80 and you're 3, you can still find a common ground with them. That's another thing.
Right. So I mean, you're definitely right, Ansley, and also Cheryl too, about the unified society. It doesn't come from conformity at all. I mean, unity can only come from granting equality and validity to an infinite diversity of all the individuals. So the universe is infinitely diverse, and every being has their own way of exploring the idea of infinite creation, right? And all these ways are equally valid. When a society encourages unique expression of each individual, that is when the society is strongest and most unified, which is kind of like what you were saying, Cheryl. So when you grant equality and validity to everyone, you're granting equality and validity to all aspects of creation, as well as reflective result of the entire creation, which supports everything you do as well. So I guess it's just a matter of coming to understanding that diversity is or like completely natural, and only in the diversity will be unified. I guess that's kind of like a paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, like Bashar has the puzzle analogy. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that we're all a different shape, but we're all needed to create the puzzle. And no two pieces are the same, but that's how you get the big picture, the all that is. Pretty cool. Oh yeah, and the video that I wanted to talk about is the knife, Europa, tear the walls down. So any of our viewers, watch that video. There's a lot of subliminal messages in the video itself. And I used to tear up watching this like 5-6 years ago. I watched it all the time. I didn't know why it was striking so many feelings. And it's so relevant now with the border wall situation. We need to recognize every individual for who they are, and that this is a very important, dynamic, unique, awesome person, each and every one of us. So yeah, check that out, you two and our viewers, because I just love the knife and I love that song.
Right.
Thank you. I will check it out.
Yay. Yep, Europa, the knife, tear the walls down. If you just type that in, it will come up. It's a good song too. So I don't know if you guys want to wrap it up, or if there's anything else you guys want to say.
No, I think we went pretty deep. That sounds pretty cool. I think we're good.
Awesome.
What do you think, Annie?
I think we're good.
All right, you guys. Well, have a lovely night.
Right on.
All right. Good night.
Thanks again for letting me be a part of the show. And
Thank you.
good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you guys so much. Much love.